Hey, fifth graders. All right, so this is going to be lesson 7 out of the getting ready for sixth grade math packet. And back in the classroom, of course, because I really can't teach the math at home with my little tiny whiteboards. It just doesn't work very well. So this lesson is dividing fractions by a whole number. And if you looked at this, you probably thought that it looked pretty familiar because, well, I guess we didn't really go over dividing fractions in class because I think the whole pandemic thing hit before we got to it. I think. We'll see. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. So if you went through that unit, this would look familiar. If you have not gone through that unit, then this might be not as familiar, in which case you probably should still be working on that as opposed to doing sixth grade stuff, but it's okay. This is super easy in terms of execution. You just have to remember one really quick trick. However, there is a they want you to understand like what's really going on here, okay? So let's take a look at something like, I don't know, we'll say 3/4 divided by 2, okay? So you're gonna divide 3/4 by 2. I don't know, we'll say that it's, Joey has 3/4 of a candy bar that he's going to divide equally between himself and a friend. So 3/4 of a candy bar divided by 2 friends is what we're looking at here. Now, when they have you draw the picture, and fortunately they give you boxes for all these pictures, so drawing it is not too big of a deal, or really it's just dividing it up and coloring it. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to make something that shows us 3/4. So 1, 2, 3/4. All right, so there's our 3/4, or there's our fourths, and then we want 3 of them, so we'll color these 3 in. Fast. All right, so 3/4, but now we want to divide this by 2, okay? And so really we want to know what's half of this. So what we would do here, if we were going to divide these, is we would just cut it straight across, and we only want to look at one of these. So we'll just take a look at the top, all right? So I'm going to color that in with some red here. Actually, let's do the bottom, because I think I can color that in better. All right, hopefully that shows up okay. But what we're looking at here is just these ones right down here. Okay, so this is, we'll say this is Joey's half, and this is his friend's. All right, so Joey gets this bottom portion. Well, he gets 3, right? But it's no longer 3/4. Now it's 3 out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So this is going to equal 3/8. Okay. Now, if we didn't draw this picture, how could we have gotten from this 3/4 to 3/8 using a 2 somewhere? Okay, I'm going to erase this picture just so that we can see the math that's working out here. Sad. All right, so if we have 3/4, and we're going to do something to it so that it equals 3/8. All right, and we've got division here, so it's going to have to do with either dividing or multiplying, right? Like, because you wouldn't throw subtraction in there. We could probably get from 3/4 down to 3/8 with subtraction, but what we want to do is use either division or multiplication. Well, division doesn't make much sense, right? To go from 4 to 8, you wouldn't divide, you would multiply. So we're going to multiply. 4 times what is equal to 8? Well, 4 times 2 is equal to 8. And then 3 times what equals 3? Well, 3 times 1. So notice 3/4 divided by 2 is the same as 3/4 times 1/2. They both give us 3/8. Okay, that's kind of the trick to dividing with, well, really any division, but especially dividing with fractions, is you change this symbol into a multiplication, and then you're going to flip this the thing that you're dividing by, the divisor, gets, we would call doing the inverse of it, but basically you're just flipping it upside down, right? So if it's 2, then it becomes 1/2. If this was divided by 1/2 here, so if it was 3/4 divided by 1/2, you would actually make it 3/4 times 2/1. Okay, so it just depends on what you're dividing by, how you do that. So it's relatively straightforward. Just, you got to remember the trick. And you got to remember that you're flipping this one, not this one. That's the big thing. And also, of course, if we had done this in class, and I gave you the problem of Joey has 3/4 of candy bar dividing by 2 friends, undoubtedly at least a few of you would have had 2 divided by 3/4, in which case you would have been dividing the 2 friends by the candy bar, which I would have teased you about being monsters, that sort of thing, which is probably sounding familiar now if you watch those videos. Anyway, okay, so let's go over some examples. On lesson 7, let's do number 5. Nope, let's start with number 2, sorry. So we're going to start with number 2, which is 3/4 divided by 3. And I want to do this because I want to show you, well, a couple of things here. All right, so first of all, they ask you to draw the picture. Oh, I apologize. Apparently they don't let you, they don't give you the boxes, so you have to draw them yourselves for at least some of them. Or maybe they, oh, I guess they give you the box, but you have to divide it up. Anyway, all right. I'm going to ignore the boxes. I'm going to assume that you can draw 3/4 in there and then divide it into 3. Yeah, let's just do the math. All right, so here's 3/4. Remember what I said, division becomes multiplication. And then we're going to turn this number upside down. So right now it's essentially 3/1, right? We're going to flip it upside down, so now it's 1/3. So we have 3/4 times 1/3. And hopefully you still remember back to our multiplying fractions unit, we just go straight across. 3 times 1 is 3. 3 times 4 is 12. But now we have to simplify because 3/12 isn't simplified, and I have to know that 3 goes into 12. The 3 goes into 3 one time, 3 goes into 12 4 times. Now, and here's kind of a little fun trick, I guess. Notice down here, we multiplied times 3, and then we also had a 3 up here, so then later we divided by 3, right? What we could have done is we could have just said, well, I see a 3 up here and a 3 down here, so we can just cross those 2 out, because that's 3 times 1 divided by 3 times 4. So we can just get rid of the 3's, which gives us, this could be a 1, this would be a 1. 1 times 1 is 1, 4 times 1 is 4, 1/4. So a little shortcut, I guess, basically. Now, if we were going to draw out the picture, which I know I said I wasn't going to do, but let's draw it just so I can say that I've got the example up there. All right, so we have 3/4 times, or oops, not times, but divided by 3. Okay, so again, we're going to divide it into that, into fourths, and we will color these in. And you can actually, if you wanted to, you can just hold off on coloring, but I don't even know if that's going to show up. This marker's dying. All right, but there's my 3/4, which hopefully you can see. We're dividing by 3, so we're going to divide this into 3 sections. Okay, and then just within these sections that are already barely colored red, we are going to color one of these 3 groups blue. Okay, so there's my 3 out of 4 times 3 is 12, so my 3/12, which you could also look at as one group of 3 here, 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 so that's 1 out of 4. Okay, but that's how you draw the picture, that's how you do the math, and in particular, just remember that you have to flip those numbers because you're not always going to have to draw pretty pictures when it comes to dividing by fractions, but you will have to know how to actually do the math work, so you need to know that. Anyway, that's it for this lesson. I hope you enjoyed it. Have a good day.